Hey everybody, it's Mad Master here. I thought I'd do a video today about something I've done several videos on before, and I thought this would be a good thing to. I'm trying to swerve away from the virus and political content a little bit more, and I figured that this would be a good chance to start doing more videos about this kind of stuff, and it's related to other subjects, and cover music, dating, and some other stuff, kind of more new age kind of stuff, like occult or whatever. By the way, I'll be doing my podcast probably in the next couple weeks too. You should check it out. I might even post it on here too, the full version, because I think we'll see what happens, because I think some of it might be a little bit more verboten, because it seems like the podcast companies, whatever you want to call it, or streaming companies that take podcasts, are a little bit more tolerant than YouTube's algorithms. So we'll have to see. Anyways, this video is kind of a declaration or realization or a epiphany that I had today. And this is about dating. And if you're watching this and you're single, or if you have had a hard time, I'm just going to talk about this because this is kind of like counterintuitive to what a lot of people have said to me over the years, and that's what I'm talking about. And that's the idea that if you're desperate or looking or really trying too hard to get a girlfriend or dates or meet women or something, you will fail, because they'll see that, they'll smell, somehow psychically all see that desperation in their brains or whatever like that. And I've always thought that that was a fallacy, because the notion that I guess the notion that you're actually taking action is kind of counters that argument, because it's like, if you're desperate and just like apathetic about it, sure. But if it's something that, it's just like, the more lonely you are, oh, you'll just meet, or either that or you'll meet someone that's shitty or something for you or whatever. More commonly though, I've heard, oh, well, you'll find someone you're not looking. Yeah. So like, case in point, and this was an experience I had in early middle school. I went to this place that I've talked about this story before, but I figured I'd start a new video about this. Went to this place called the Rollerdrome with two of my buds. It was a roller skating rink back when I was a kid. And they both had these they danced with these two girls, and I asked someone to dance. I was rejected. I got really depressed about it. And then I asked a relative, and she's like, "You'll meet someone soon. Don't worry. When you stop looking, you'll meet someone." One of the biggest fallacies anybody could ever make in the world. And I thought today, this is the epiphany that I had today. And this sounds kind of pathetic, but it's the truth. The more desperate I am, the more depressed and lonely I am, usually is when I take the most action. I don't know if it's because of self-help books, or even Dr. Wayne Dyer. I think I read that as a teenager. Your Erroneous Zones and stuff. A certain relative had those books, and Pulling Your Own Strength, really good books. Really good, like, beginner self-help books, I'd say, are those two books. And I know a lot of people bash Dr. Wayne Dyer, rest in peace, and a lot of those ideas. But, those two books are kind of a good foundation for helping yourself out of a lot of ruts. And I figured that was kind of in my own life something that's influenced me too, is buying those two books. The original ones with his 70s button-down shirt showing his chest hair, speaking of that, and the blue shirt and the medallion, or the gold chain that he had in the picture. He has this goofy look on his face. I love those books. I think they're great. I also like The Power of Intention is a good book too to buy from Dr. Wayne Dyer. Those three books are kind of the three books that you can, I dare say, you can base your life around those three books, because they have so much information in those three. Now, anyways, it's not about Dr. Wayne Dyer, it's about this whole thing. So And Anthony Robbins has talked about this too. It's like either you get so bad off in life, it's like the air conditioning. It gets, or the heat. If it gets too cold, the heater will kick in. Things will heat up. Or as it gets too hot, you'll be, pushed down. A little bit. It's kind of a metaphor for life. So, no, I don't think it's true. The most desperate I've gotten is usually the time when I start looking, being more assertive, in certain situations, and then I have that expectation, and then I meet someone, and that's really how it's worked my whole life. So I wouldn't, maybe using the word desperate would be a little bit strong of a term, too strong of a term, but I think at least like assertive, as far as like wanting to do something like that, like wanting to get that part of your life handled or whatever, and getting more assertive about it, getting more consistent, persistent about it, knowing the consistency or persistence will pay off sooner or later, and probably sooner in a very major way. It's a Ross Jeffries thing, anyways. So the whole notion of this is so flawed, and it's like, I know that people probably continue to perpetuate this idea, and it's kind of one of those old wives' tales or superstitions that people have. It's a superstition. It's like, the more you look, the less you'll find. And it's counterintuitive, because this is what society has told us all our lives. Your family members, your friends, your peers, your whoever, your group, your movies, whatever. It's like, oh well. And then that ties in with the whole like there's only one person out there for you thing. Like, she waited for him to come back from being stranded on the ship at sea, and the movie ended in this romantic way. It's a bunch of bullshit. I mean, it doesn't help that some of the romance I saw growing up wasn't the most romantic thing possible, but people throwing shit at each other and stuff like that. I mean, it doesn't help, but it's like these notions, these social conditioned ideas are bullshit. And that includes this notion that the only way you can meet people is by waiting and sitting on your ass, or I mean, there's a little bit. So someone else once said, once quoted Field of Dreams, or misquoted it or whatever, because it's kind of one of those Mandela affected movies. If you build it, they will come, or whatever. Someone said that to me. It's like, I could see that being a notion that's pretty powerful. Like the idea that you build yourself up, you start working out, you start getting yourself together, that'll attract more women or whatever. But the whole idea that not looking is something you should do is the dumbest notion ever. I mean, my problem is apathy. My problem is complacency with regards to that subject, and it always has been. Because I'll go in my little bubble, and when I was a kid, I think I had some type of Asperger's or something, and because my friends told me like, oh, this girl liked you, she tried to talk to you, and I'm like, I don't even remember seeing her, like at the bus stop once, this terrible story that I heard, and it's just like, I didn't even notice her. I was in my own little bubble, and that's what happened a lot of the time back then. But the whole thing about like having this notion is just, maybe I should have paid more attention and just been less tied up and constrained in my own little thing, my little constricted ball of whatever the hell, misanthropy and fear and anxiety and stuff, and depression, which I did have a lot growing up, and still do have a lot of it, unfortunately. But that whole notion was so dumb, and I should have never listened to that, And there were other people in my life that were encouraging me to be, I guess, aggressive or assertive, And I understand them a lot more now, even if they didn't turn, there's things that happened to certain people that told me that later on, but they were right. They were right about, you have to be, you have to talk to people, you have to, go out there and try to meet people with, or online or whatever, if that's since that's more of a thing now, of course, you have to spend a lot of time on it. And then there were a couple of people that I met in more recent years. They're like, I was like, oh yeah, you must just like go on Tinder for 15 minutes and get laid from that. And it's like, no, you spend hours on it and stuff like that. And people that are reasonably attractive have to put a lot. Even people that are reasonably attractive. Just kidding. I don't feel like that a lot of the time. But people that are reasonably normal looking or attractive or normal or whatever you want to call it still have to put in the work a lot of the time. So that's the problem with this notion, is that there's no work involved. It should just be this easy. And I think this is going to sound a little misogynist in a certain way, or sexist or whatever, but I think a lot of it has to do with like a feminine like look at the world, the feminine energies, whatever you want to call it. It sounds like woo misogyny. Like David Deida talks about this anyways, and people are, I like David Deida's Way of the Superior Man. I don't give a crap about what anybody says about some of these books and stuff. I still find value in them. Well, what if there's like 36 different genders now? You can't talk about superior man anymore. Or well, what about superior them or whatever? I don't care. I don't care. I like these things. They're valuable to me. I'm not going to give them up. So anyways, a little bit, it's too political on that point. I'm trying not to be political on this, but yeah, I don't think that notion is very effective. And I can tell you about a few times, even back in the day when I didn't know the first thing about getting a girlfriend, I would take these actions. It'd be like, oh man, I'm so lonely, I'm depressed. It'd be like midwinter, and then not midwinter, late winter, and then early spring, I'd be like going on dates and stuff and finally meeting a girlfriend, mid-spring or whatever. It's like, I would put it out to the universe that I'm looking for someone. And maybe that didn't turn out or work out, and maybe that's why it's bad, is because you're putting this desperate energy out there. Well, until it's natural to you that's the whole thing, is it has to be natural to be able to have someone in your life. Like, it has to be a natural thing. Like, it has to be, you have to make it so it is natural and normal to have someone around, right? And that's the difficult problem that many people face, including me. It's like, oh, I'm naturally alone a lot of the time, or a lone ranger. It's like, I'm not always sitting here I'm sitting here contemplating another thing I'm going to do on my own, instead of thinking about, oh well, there could be a woman involved in that too. It's like, when you're so used to being single and stuff, it's a lot harder to motivate yourself. So if I would have gotten started in my preteen, early teens with dating, things would have gone a lot smoother and better, in my opinion. It would have gone a lot better, and things would have been different. Who knows? If things would have been so different that they would influence other parts of my life, like a lot of these self-help pickup guys will always say that part of your life influences other parts of your life. You're trying to be more assertive and more positive vibe, put a positive vibe out there, trying to attract women. You're going to be more positive in general. You're going to influence other parts of your life. You're more organized, blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of what I have to say about that. This myth, the lawnmower is way too loud. This myth is totally flawed and needs to be cast out of our social conditioning. It's never going to be, so you have to just take it with a grain of salt when someone tells you, well, you'll meet someone where you're not looking and not thinking about it. Ugh. And there's, there's the not thinking about it almost sounds like the occult where magic, you have to do, chaos magic, you do this sigil and you forget about it. It's all related to that type of mentality, but it's not true overall. The process that you're doing all these things to try to meet someone is what gets you to meet someone. And then you go through all these experiences. I could talk about 2011 when I had this one of my best girlfriends. What I went through, I had these dates, or it was like five or 6 dates with these various women. I would have dated this girl for 2 months before I met my real girlfriend a couple months later. And I was depressed, and I was like in winter of 2010 and early 2011. I'm gonna close the window. I was depressed early 2011 or 2010 and 2011, late 2010, and the whole thing kind of became, like, oh my God, it's been so long. I'm so depressed. But I just started being like, I'm gonna do this, man. I'm gonna get this going, and it worked. It did. I had all these dates. Some of these dates were really bad, just like, and got, there were some fights over text about this or that after the date, or before the date, or what. I mean, it's just some weird stuff that I experienced back then. And then I saw this girl, that for 2 months, and she was kind of strange, and it was sorry to say, but she was just kind of, I don't know, it was just a really weird situation. It was really awkward at that time. I really wasn't showing my best self to this woman, I'll admit. And when things kind of faded out with her, and then I was like really bummed out about it because it had been a long time, and I was really messed up over it. Like sometimes I get, unfortunately. And then what happened was I got over that depression. It was almost like if you ever experience like a panic attack, there's all these endorphins that come after the when you're actually relaxed again. You feel like you're better off, like you can, you have this panic attack. I used to have a lot of panic attacks. So this, it was kind of like that, where I was like more confident after this thing goes bad. I had a couple dates before that, but then I dated this girl for 2 months. And after this goes bad, after I get over it, which took about a month, or did it take about, yeah, it took about a month. And then I had a couple more dates. Those dates went way better. And then and then that last one, there was like a third one after that. That was my girlfriend that I dated for quite a while after that. And that was that was one of the best relationships I had. So the seed of that, though, is desperation. Oh my God, I'm so depressed. It's been so long since I had a girlfriend or girl in my bed or whatever, It all comes from that little seed. And if I would have followed, well, this is not the time. I gotta be like, I gotta like not think about it because I'm looking too hard. No, wouldn't have worked. See, that seed sprouted a flower. The seed was rotten, but for some reason, what came out of it was a great flower of a flower of greatness and happiness, at least for a while. So that's a little story, because it's like, I was so bummed out in that winter of 2010, early 2011. I was starting to listen to listen to this audiobook, A Course in Miracles. This is how bad I was. Like, I'll never get married. It was really messed up. It was bad. And then, but from that desperation and sadness and patheticness, honestly, if that's not a word, I don't know. But from that came some of the best experiences of my damn life. So I hope this serves as like a story that, if people hear, and I'm not saying that they're flawed, I'm not saying that they're at fault, people that say this stuff, but like, my opinion about this whole thing is that I don't think that people should tell people how they need to feel about situations in their life, I feel like that's just kind of encroaching on their their self awareness and everything like that. I don't think it's a good thing to do, to tell people, well, you'll meet someone when you stop looking. It just so bothers me. I've done multiple videos about it, and I'm still gonna, probably a year from now, I'll probably be doing a video about it or something. I just think it's so stupid. I think it's so dumb. It doesn't work for me. For me, it's the opposite. I've got to get desperate as hell. Then I'm successful. That's the irony about this whole thing. And I'm not saying that everybody should prescribe to that or not, but I'm saying for me, I have to get fucking desperate, because it is like that, what Tony Robbins talks about in Personal Power too. It's like like when the air conditioning, or not the air conditioning, when it gets too cold, you have this temperature gauge, it'll turn on the heaters, right? That's what happens to me. The heat goes on. It goes fucking like 90 degrees, If it gets to like 60 degrees, usually like 40 or 30 degrees, if you want to use metaphors like that. Yeah, and it doesn't work to. For me, it's complacency. That's the problem. Like, oh yeah, go on Tinder for a minute and whatever. I won't go see. I won't hang out. Go whatever. It's just complacency and laziness and apathy that is the enemy for me with regards to that subject. And I'm sure a lot of you watching this video probably have that problem too. It's the wrong prescription for the wrong problem. First of all, it's like, well, the problem isn't that I'm just going out and bombing because I'm just crying because I'm so desperate for a girlfriend, going out to bars. Will you be my girlfriend? Even that has worked for me too. Like online, like years ago. Won't talk about that, but that was a terrible experience as well. But yeah, it doesn't work for me to just sit here on my ass and say, oh, I'll meet a girlfriend one day. Nah, maybe I'll do that. Nah. Aggressive action, aggressive, formulation of your mental state to do that actually helps me way more than any kind of sitting on my ass and saying, oh, I'm gonna meet a girl one day, and when I stop looking, I'll meet someone. I'll be 50 years old, and then I'll still be single, but it's fine. I'll meet someone one day. I'll be 80 years old. Yeah. No. Fuck no. It's not gonna work. And I never did, never has, never will. It never did. Maybe I got really successful at something, like, oh my God, you're rich and famous. Now you're meeting women left and right? Now it is true. Oh, this is one little note to say on that does contradict that a little bit. It is true that if you're happy and you're out and about and doing stuff and you're making people laugh, social proof, as Cialdini has said, or whoever, social proof. You have people reacting to you in a public manner, then yes, now this theory could work, but it's more a theory where you're actually out there open to these new experiences and meeting new people. In a way, you could say, like, well, isn't that still action though? You're going out there like this, this last summer during the actual period where things were a lot better with which I'm not going to talk about. I was out there, I was getting hit on and stuff. I think it happened like 2 or 3 times in like a month and a half period. I was like, what the hell, I'm just like, and it was just like, some of the situations were less than ideal. That's why I didn't like go on with it, but it was just like, wow. You just go out there and just hang out with people and just have fun. You could do that. So that kind of doesn't defy what I'm saying in this video, but it definitely has a stamp of a little bit of a little more nuance to the situation. But the whole idea that you can wait. And you know, another thing about that is, I mean, this is the last point of this video because it's going on way too long again. The whole point that if you're, okay, so let's just say this. If you're a normal person, well adjusted, normal social circles, normal situations, right? You have, I mean, someone may call you, you know, in high school you're a prep because that's like the norm, right? Preppy, whatever, you know, you're a prep because you went to college, you have this social circle of people, at least at a younger age, youngish age, especially, because at this point, you know, it's people with divorces and kids. As far as at my point, you know, that's, well, the social circle thing is a little less prominent at my age, which is another strike against me, of course, as far as dating goes, because it's like, what am I going to do, like go to single moms night everywhere, you know? It's like, you know, and you know, as far as my physical, you know, my attraction to physicality and my, you know, my superficial stuff, it doesn't fit some of the time either, if you know what I mean, like a little bit more of a healthy lifestyle that I'm trying to live more often now than I was. So the whole notion that if you're a normal person, quote unquote normal, trademark, whatever, and you're a more well-adjusted person that has normal socialization as a child and adolescent and young adult, that this whole like wait around and sit on your ass kind of mentality, or whatever you want to call it, works probably a little bit better. I would have to say that it probably works a lot better, a little bit to a lot better, because I don't think this whole thing would work. It's not going to be like perfect, but it works a lot better. So if someone like, me and my friend were talking about this one time, like, why do we have to do this stuff? Why do we have to be more assertive, dare I say aggressive in this part of our lives? Like, I don't mean aggressive as like harassment or something like that. I mean like actively seek it out more than a lot of people. Well, we're a different breed of people, I guess you would say. You know, we didn't have the normal, I don't think we had the normal thing that people have. Now, he's way more successful than I am. That said, you know, I don't think we had the normal upbringing, whatever you want to call it, as far as socialization and, you know, normal experiences. Like you go to the junior high school dance and you make out, maybe you do a little bit more than that, you know. This is kind of how I view normal. Okay, so I'm just gonna say what I believe normal to be. You know, you go, you know, you have a crush on a girl, you ask her out, you write her a letter, and then in the middle school, if she goes out with you to the dance, you make out for the first time, and you go steady for 2 weeks. And then by high school, you have a 2-month relationship, and then you lose your virginity or whatever. And then 6 months, you know, you're 17, and then college, you have your first 2-year relationship. You live with the woman for 2 years. And then the next one, you marry. And then that lasts for 8 years or whatever. And I mean, you might have little flings in between too, like most people do, I believe. I'm sorry to say that. And then that's a normal life. And then you have your second wife or husband or whatever, and have your kids with both or whatever the hell, you know. That's a normal life, you know. But some people have never had that. So they don't lose their virginity until their 20s, or, you know, or their 30s even. God forbid that happen. Or 40s, for Christ's sake. Or they don't have a lot of relationships and they don't know how to socialize with the opposite sex or whatever they're attracted to. They're going to have more problems, and they're going to be less normal. So when we're talking about people that are less normal, you know, that's what I'm talking about. And that's why seeking, and it takes like double or triple or quadruple or tenfold the work for people that have gone through this type of the more abnormal, quote unquote, socialization, sexualization, whatever that they've gone through in their life. and it's a lot harder. So they have to double down and be a lot more aggressive about it. And that's why these things like the pickup artist community are so popular, is because a lot of people post sexual revolution, and this is one of the, and I think the sexual revolution has a lot of benefits, and feminism and stuff, but there's also this missing thing, this missing link, where things were more predictable with a lot of people with growing up, especially young men and boys, cisgender especially is what I'm talking about. They have the, what do they call, the latchkey home or whatever, that I forgot what it was called, but it's like, you have the one parent household and you have all this stuff, and like you don't really get a lot. You don't get taught these things that were basic, but you don't have the setup, you don't have the structure to, marry your high school sweetheart, because you don't have a high school sweetheart, because you just don't know what the hell's going on. So that was like maybe that's just a very simplistic black and white view, but I could think of my grandparents that were, they were married for whatever amount of time, and most people back then, it was for life, for a very long time, and society frowned upon people that got divorces and all that stuff. So you had a guarantee, you had an in. Same with arranged marriages. It's like you had that in, you're just all in for life. So the loss of a lot of these things, because of sexual evolution, feminism, as many benefits as there were, is a result of that, those industries popping up, these like things like pickup artists and all this stuff, because of that. And then you have all these technological things and all the chemicals in the food. I'm going to talk about that. I think this is a bigger subject that people should talk about, is chemicals in food to make money. Because the more bigger the population, the more you have to make this food that's fast and has these chemicals and preservatives, and get people addicted to them, like they said about Taco Bell or whatever, one of the ingredients or something really messed up. Hopefully this isn't medical misinformation. I'm just talking about that, all this stuff that they're doing, they're putting in the food and stuff. I mean, maybe it's a little exaggerated, but it's making people more fat and more unhealthy and stuff. Me included, because I still eat a lot of that shit, but trying not to as much. But sometimes it's it's good. I don't know, So that's kind of this, our modern society has brought people to this brink with regards to relationships, and they want a more traditional thing eventually, or they just want to mess around and have choice, quote unquote. Have boundaries, have choice, have standards. I've known way too many men or women that have had no standards. They didn't have standards for themselves either. A lot of the time, they've had no standards. Oh yeah, and one of my exes said, "Oh, I dated a neo-Nazi for a while." I'm like, really? And you're miss feminism and like, and all this stuff and all this kind of sort of wokish kind of stuff. She had a BLM thing on her Facebook thing, and she dated a neo-Nazi. I've dated a lot of guys. A neo-Nazi. Like, what kind of standards? What kind of standards do you have if you have to date a neo-Nazi? So, like, I'm watching this thing about having standards and boundaries, and a lot of people don't. So many people are trained by our society, all these conflicting messages. So, anyways, I've gone on a whole other tangent about this stuff, but the major thing is that it's if you want to get anywhere in society, in this culture, and there's this book Seduction that was about, there's a sociological feminist work about the seduction community and pickup artist thing and stuff, and they talked about how capitalism is like the neoliberal capitalism is like the model for this like sociological viewpoint as far as pickup artistry goes, because it's like this, women are like a commodity and stuff like this. Oh, it was pretty deep stuff, actually. I kind of, I find myself agreeing with some of that stuff, honestly. But like, to make it anywhere in our society, you have to produce like that. You have to really be assertive and aggressive towards these things. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's just the way things are. So that kind of goes back to my notion that having to be assertive with dating is the only way to go. These old wives' tales, these old superstitions about I'm gonna wait around and sit and wait for a girlfriend to come magically appear in front of me, even though I'm eating Cheetos or Doritos. Well, in my case, it would be Doritos. The chili, whatever, spicy chili, sweet chili, or whatever. That's my fucking pain. And sitting on there playing fucking Castlevania on your phone is not gonna, Castlevania Symphony of the Night on your phone. It's not gonna get you a girlfriend. You gotta fucking go out there, meet women, or meet whoever, and also online, just email a bunch at once. Things have to be done. They have to be, you have to spend hours on this stuff, and that's what has to be done. You have to do it, and eventually you'll break through, because you're expecting that, eventually it'll be a breakthrough, and then it'll go, get better and better, and then better and better, and then you finally, decide that maybe you decide to have a girlfriend or whatever. So it's pretty much all I have to say about this whole notion, and I went off on a whole totally different tangent, and there was a lawnmower as a bonus, and that's about all.